Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Let's take a look at the headlines. The Prime Minister meets with supermarket owners as part of her national conversation to ensure the accessibility and availability of food supplies. The Education Minister announces that his ministry distributed some 2 million textbooks since being in office and is considering e-textbooks. And government's infrastructural work continues as the new Hermitage-Day Bay Link Road is opened. Thank you for joining us. Prime Minister, the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, is ensuring that the issues of food quality, availability and affordability are brought centre stage. This comes as government used the National Conversation Initiative to begin fruitful discussions on ensuring food is affordable for all citizens.
Prime Minister, the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, SC, has engaged supermarket owners from across the country to work together to ensure all citizens can afford themselves everything they need to sustain healthy families. Speaking following another round of the National Conversation Initiative with supermarket owners at the Super Quality Complex in Chaguanas on Tuesday, the Prime Minister said she was very happy for the opportunity to have engaged in conversation with them. Promising to give consideration to concerns expressed by supermarket owners, she reminded business operators that the country's supermarket owners play an extremely important role, not only in the quality of lives of citizens, but in helping citizens maintain their ability to sufficiently provide for the health and well-being of their families. The Prime Minister said it was an opportunity to listen and learn how the government could work together with the nation's supermarket owners to provide the best quality food and products at the most affordable level to citizens. She said through the conversation, her government effectively brought the issues of food quality, availability and affordability to centre stage. Prime Minister Persad-Bissessar also spoke of the success of the National Conversation Initiative so far, speaking of meetings already hosted with interest groups and plans for future meetings. She stated that the success of the program has convinced her more than ever before that citizens want to participate in their own democracy and be the ones to build their own future through a performance-driven and listening government. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
In other news, as the country prepares to host the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum in October, emphasis is being placed on the many challenges faced by Latin America and the Caribbean at the second edition of the Inter-American Competitiveness Network meeting. Infrastructural investment in the region was high on top the priority list.
The Science and Competitiveness in the Americas SCA report is the result of collaboration between authorities and councils of the Americas and the institutions that support the work of the Inter-American Competitiveness Network.
I feel very privileged to be part of a very exciting and interesting journey because we have been, working with the Americas Competitiveness Forum for the last almost 2 years, and the amount of knowledge and information flowing, the interest of people, it's astronomical. I would really like to see at the end of the day that we spoke to it yesterday, that we have some action steps that can be implementable in our various jurisdictions.
It contains two main sectors, one of which is offering a broad view of innovation and the challenges and opportunities we face as a region, and another that includes more than 50 countries and institutional experiences related to 10 general principles of competitiveness. The dialogue on competitiveness is part of the consensus of Santo Domingo approved by representatives from more than 30 countries, which will culminate a competitive forum on America's competitiveness to be hosted by Trinidad and Tobago on October 8th this year. Dr. Buhindradat Tiwari, Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development, with a long trajectory of promoting competitiveness in the Caribbean, presented his perspective on the creative industries and their potential to contribute to the economic development of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
At the conference itself, that's the CDACF Forum, we will create an opportunity for one member of this gathering to present the findings or the recommendations or the most astute elements that we would like to bring to the attention of the world based on this collaborative engagement in which we are involved in the form of a presentation at the conference.
In 2014, he says the institutions that support this work and other collaborations have made special contributions to the report, most of them focusing on the central subject of the 8th America's Competitiveness Forum, the human imagination at work, driving competitiveness, powering innovation.
The whole business of how we think about life, how we think about the world, how we think about economies, how we think about development. I think all of that right now is under a certain kind of scrutiny and rethinking. And it is important to understand that.
The minister says this forum promises to be one that will demonstrate that investment in infrastructure continues and increases coverage and quality of public services, access to markets for goods and inputs, and welfare in general. He believes the development of infrastructure constitutes a central element of the economic system of a country. The Economic Commission on Latin America and the Caribbean confirms that the reduction of infrastructure investment in the region has caused a growing deficit of infrastructure and related services, and with the expectation of telecommunications, the provision of the services is below that of developed countries and other emerging economies. One of the key topics to be discussed at the forum in October 2014 is the main challenges faced by Latin America and the Caribbean. Key speakers will seek to address policies regarding infrastructure services, institutional barriers, lack of sustainability criteria, and limitations on access to finance, as well as the lack of effective public-private partnership. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
News 4 continues right after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is committed to ensuring the standard of education in the country is bettered. Now, this comes as Education Minister Dr. The Honorable Tim Gopi Singh says more than 2 million textbooks have been provided to students throughout the country.
The government is moving to provide students with e-versions of the textbooks they currently use in schools. Education Minister Dr. Tim Gopi Singh reveals this is part of the government's plan to revolutionize education in Trinidad and Tobago. Addressing the upper house in Tuesday's Senate sitting, Minister Gopi Singh says the government has already provided almost 2.25 million books to students in Trinidad and Tobago.
In total, 2010 we have purchased 354,642 textbooks. 2011, 342,070 textbooks. 2012, 1,193,148 textbooks, and 2013, 359,987 textbooks. Mr. President, in total, between 2010 to 2013, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago provided 2,249,987 textbooks for the students of Trinidad and Tobago.
He says this dedication to ensuring every student free access to education has, however, come at a cost.
Between 2010 and 2013, 4 years, we have spent close to over $245 million in providing textbooks for the students of Trinidad and Tobago. Approximately $245 million.
The Education Minister says although there has been a distribution problem, his ministry is committed to giving every child the necessary tools for educational success.
We took some time to establish a proper system, and through that then we had to tender. There are certain books that certain publishers have a monopoly on, and certain textbooks that we have to import from abroad with the publishers. And so some of these importation, they used to bring them by boat, and we paid now for them to be brought by air. And so there were some delays by the publishers in themselves trying to seek the textbooks and to print the textbooks locally, because you saw where we needed over 2 million textbooks for the four-year period. So the first time in 2012, we had 4 printers, established printers in Trinidad and Tobago, printing the textbooks in Trinidad and Tobago rather than the printing being done in India and China, which was done previously. And from then, we began to get the textbooks in a more appropriate time. The distribution takes some time, but by and large, we finish within about a 2-month period for the distribution. And there are certain times where we may not have completed the distribution for one reason or the other, but we work towards ensuring that all the students get their textbook as best as possible on time.
Minister Gopi Singh says it is for these reasons and others that the government is looking into providing students with e-versions of their textbooks in coming years.
The burden of having to carry these textbooks to the schools by students of an early age will be a thing of the past. And so that I've already started discussions with the 24 publishers we have locally and about 10 that we get books from internationally. So far, it seems to be relatively rewarding, but further discussions are taking place and further information will be given to the nation as far as that is concerned.
Gregory McBurney, News 4.
Meanwhile, as students who wrote the secondary entrance assessment examinations await their results, parents would be elated to know there has been a marked continuous improvement of results by students writing the exam over the past few years. This general improvement is being highlighted by Minister of Education, Dr. the Honorable Tim Gopi Singh. Addressing the Upper House in Tuesday's Senate sitting, Dr. Gopi Singh says this overall improvement stemmed from an improvement in the most essential of subjects, language arts.
We have had an improvement in the language arts aspect of the examination, 10% improvement in language arts. In fact, on the international benchmarking by PISA, out of 48 countries studied, we have gained at least 35 points, which is equivalent to a 6 months improvement for the students in Standard 3. We still have far to go, but we are working assiduously to reach there.
The Education Minister says there has also been a 12% improvement in creative writing results. Dr. Gopi Singh says the evident improvement in these results suggests that this year the country can see improved overall SEA results by students nationwide.
We have also witnessed a dramatic lessening of the students, getting less than 30% in the exams from 14% when we came in to 6% now. We want to reduce that to 0. And students obtaining greater than 50%. We had about a 58% at one time. Now we have moved to 72% of our students getting greater than 50%.
Minister Gopi Singh says the government has sought to replicate these improved results at the secondary school level. Also, he says this was done by using a multifaceted approach to dealing with the issues which were limiting the success of students at the O and A-level examinations.
We've had interventional policies to ensure that literacy and numeracy become a significant part of the education process. So when they would have had 1 or 2 periods or a few periods per week, we doubled those periods. And so we were able to see better performance in language arts and mathematics. So school-based management, intervention of the boards to make sure that they're looking at the schools a little more, literacy and numeracy programs. We had 82 teachers who did a master's in reading. We made sure that they were spread across the entire school system where the schools were not performing. So they added an impetus in terms of the literacy. And the mathematics, we began to use more manipulatives in the system from early. And so that has been proving to be an additional boost for the students' competence in the numeracy aspect.
News 4 continues right after the break. Stay with us. With W Connection already securing the TT Pro League title and the first automatic spot for the Champions League, the focus was on the battle for the other coveted place in the regional competition. The Defence Force and Central FC were the two teams still in contention. Here's Wayne Cunningham with the details of how it all ended.
On the final night of competition in the TT Pro League, Central FC needed a win versus St. Anne's Rangers when they met at the Atterboldon Stadium in Couva. and they also needed San Juan Jabloteh to defeat the Defence Force at the Hazley Crawford Stadium in order to grab second place and qualification to the Champions League. Both matches had an identical 9 p.m. kickoff time, and the Central faithful were delighted to hear that Jabloteh took a 1-0 lead in the second minute in Port of Spain. But they almost suffered an early setback themselves, as 17-year-old Josh Toussaint rocks the upright after the fine build-up. Central got chances of their own to take the lead, and you would have put money on Willis Plaza finishing this one, but Akel Clark thwarted the effort. 10 minutes later, it was Plaza again, uncharacteristically squandering the opportunity. The national striker could not buy a goal in the first half. Rondell Winchester eased the nerves of his teammates in the 43rd minute.
Goal Central FC.
The Tobagonian celebrating his recall to the national team with a well-taken item to give Central a 1-0 lead at half-time. As the second half started, Atula Guerra had the upright ringing and Winchester missed out on the follow-up. The Sharks had to wait until the 71st minute to add to their lead. That is when Plaza finally found his scoring boots. Plaza showing why he is one of the league's top scorers and a key component in the plans for national coach Stephen Hart. He doubled up in the 80th minute to seal the deal for Central FC. Dwight Quintero with the centre, which was met one time by Plaza for the 3-0 Central score. That is all they would need, as Jabloteh held on to their 1-0 lead against the Defence Force, which sparked celebrations in Central. The Sharks, in their second year, qualifying for the Champions League with a second-place finish in the TT Pro League. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
Thank you very much, Wayne. News 4 continues right after this. Government has spent approximately $9 million on the new Hermitage Debe Link Road, which took about 6 months to be completed. Dr. The Honorable Rudal Munilal, Minister of Housing and Urban Development, confirmed the overall costs of the road, stating that developmental work is also being done in other communities across the country.
Dr. The Honorable Rudal Munilal, Minister of Housing and Urban Development, along with his cabinet colleague, Minister in the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, Stacey Rupnarayan, has opened the newly constructed Hermitage to Debe Road. The housing minister says the overall cost of the road was estimated at around $9 million and it took approximately 6 months to be completed. Minister Munilal said the road will connect East and West Oropouche constituencies, reduce bottleneck traffic in Debe and service agriculture tenancies along the route, as well as provide access to some 25 households.
This major road artery this morning, constitutes a vital link between Gandhi Village and Palmy's Hermitage and provides critical access road as a bypass to the bottleneck which occurs daily at peak traffic hours at the new Debe interchange. This road will also service 17 agricultural tenancies of the former VSAP ex-Caroni workers and approximately 25 households. Our government has taken heed of the requests from members of the community to improve the level of access and general infrastructure within local communities.
In a later interview with members of the media, Minister Munilal pointed out that improvement works were also taking place in other communities across the country, including Labre.
Well, in Labre, you know that in about a month or so, we are in Labre to open the Labre police station, which we are now building there. UDCOT is building. So work is taking place there. We have housing estates there we are now developing. So a lot of work is taking place at infrastructure in these areas. Always there's more to do, even in Oropouchis. As much as we talk about what we have done, we have a lot more to do. So that you will always have requests for more work. But in all areas, whether it's Diego Martin, Minister Rup Narain spoke to that, whether it's Diego Martin, Arima, Sandy Grande, San Fernando, Point Fortin, infrastructure work is taken. In fact, a major signature project of the government is really a highway to Labra and Point Fortin.
Minister in the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, Stacey Rup Narain, meantime agrees that the new road will greatly assist with the alleviation of traffic. She reiterated government's promise that rural areas in the country will never be neglected again. Felicia Wilson-Mon, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. Remember, you can view a repeat of our newscast weekdays at 6 a.m. and feel free to visit our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/RTV4. I'm Nicola Barito. Thank you for joining us.